Hello. There it is. There it is. Saved, saved, saved. We got it. We got it. Hello, everyone. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Uh, Welcome in. How's everybody doing? Rocksters, thank you for the 1 year. Crazy. Star Marie Rosemary, thank you for the follow. Ophelia, thank you for streaking. Unlucky Leechy, thank you for the follow. Gentle Giant, thank you for the streak. What's up? Ophelia is sharing malware. Cool, cool, cool. We're so back. We are back. Jam Bob, hello. Um, I forgot to let y'all know there wasn't going to be a stream last week. Sees. Um, Last week I was at the Florida Entomological Society base camp. 10 months. Thank you. For months, I'm blaming that. That's fair, Space Camp. Appreciate it, and also, Huck. Good night. Good night. Um, so yeah, last week, for work, I was at the Florida Entomological Society meeting. It was my first time at that conference, ever. Even though I did my undergrad here, I never went to that one before. Um, and it was interesting. Um, it's a much smaller conference than ESA. That's the Entomological Society of America meeting, which is going to be in Columbus, Ohio, in November. So it's a lot smaller than that, and it's obviously a lot more Florida focused, as you can imagine. Um, I gave my Carabids of Florida talk that you guys have seen like twice probably already. Um, I gave that because this was, I think, my last audience where I had like new entomology contacts in Florida that would potentially be able to help and like send me specimens for that project. So I was really happy to be able to give it again, and I did get some pretty good feedback on it, which was always nice. Um, Crowds can be tough sometimes, but uh, overall, I think it went pretty well. My higher up bosses at work that were there also liked it, so that's always a win column when the bosses see you do something good and actually tell you you did a good job. But while we were there was a scheduled blacklighting event. Um, Blue Sanctuary. Lyndon's fault you're here. Well, welcome in. Friend of Lyndon is friend of ours. Um, there was a scheduled blacklighting thing on Tuesday night, and Florida being what Florida is, there was maybe like a little bit of rain in the forecast. Um, There's a little bit of rain in the forecast, and the organizers were like, "Yeah, we're gonna call it off just because of the inclement weather. Like, we're not gonna run it tonight." And I don't give a shit. What do I care? My lights are pretty well waterproof. I've got a generator. I can get my own power. So me and two of my friends from work were like, "Hey, we're gonna go anyway. and just, you know, feel it out, see what happens. Um, and we got there, we set up, we blacklit for like 4.5 hours, and it didn't start raining until we started cleaning up for the night. It it was totally fine. It was totally dry. Everyone would have had a very good time had they come out. But that just means more bugs for us. So less competition, more bugs for me. Always count that as a win. Um, I felt like I maybe needed this bit of a win after after the shit show that was my Saturday night plans. Um, what are you blacklight for in Florida? Brava Alpha Echo. We're a bug channel. So bug soup from the title is all of the stuff that we picked up on last week. So all these beetles and stuff that are in here is what we typically blacklight for. But we did get like we had Luna moths come in, we had Imperial moths come in, we had one of the other Saturniids come in. So a lot of other big stuff, but of course, you know, I tend to gravitate towards the beetles more, so that's mostly all I pick up. Uh before we dive into the bug soup, Saturday. Saturday. Um I had plans to go to a Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp minor league baseball game. Using the track bugs. Yes, exactly. Exactly, Bravo. We play a hand in that beetle, gentle giant for sure. Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Um, yes, we do play a role in that, unfortunately, but they're going to last in a collection for many, many, many years beyond what their natural buggy lifespan would be. Um, so for the cause, they exist there. But how'd the baseball game go? Not great, Nikki. Not great, let me tell you. So, uh, Jacksonville is a bit of a drive for me, but it was up in the area where this conference was. So rather than waiting until the next day when all of my coworkers were driving up, I was like, I'm gonna go Saturday. I'm gonna go to this baseball game, and I'll just, you know, I'll camp or whatever, and then I'll just meet up with everybody on Sunday. I get to the Jumbo Shrimps at 5:30. The game is supposed to start at 6:30. So I have an hour to wander around to get my hat. Um, I wanted a Jumbo Shrimp baseball hat, so I got myself one of those. Got a hot dog, got a beer, went and sat down, got in my nice little pretty good seats, and the tarp is over the field. Well, it was raining, so makes sense that they had the tarp out. But then it kept raining. It oh yes, excuse me. Yes, I it was a shaboing boing. Um I apologize for the transgression. Um the tarp was out until like 7:30, so at least like over an hour past when the game was supposed to start. And then it let up. It let up a little bit. It actually stopped raining at one point, and they took the tarp off. They had the players warming up on the field. They did the introduction so you could track your scorecard and everything. They had like some little league children's team getting ready to like run around the bases and do all the ceremonial opening stuff. And then It sounded like someone lit off one of the like home run celebration fireworks on accident. It was the loudest crack of thunder that maybe I've ever heard in my life. And I swear to God, the lightning hit home plate. Like, it was so bright and it was so loud. I was like, well, shit, we're not watching any baseball today. Um, and so I was looking at the radar. It didn't look terrible, but it didn't look great. So I waited it out. They covered the thing back up. Started raining harder. It started like pouring. Uh, and I waited around until like 9:30, give or take. So I have now been at the stadium for 4 hours, and the game should have started 3 hours ago. Before they finally called it for inclement weather. Um, which sucks, of course, when that was my plan to like be there for the night, get to watch baseball and all that. Um, so kind of blows, but the tickets are transferable to any other home game for the rest of the season. So I just have to pick a new one where I can get up to the Jacksonville area and maybe go again and cross our fingers that it doesn't rain a second time. um, but then after they finally called it, I didn't end up camping because it was pouring rain. I ended up just sleeping in my car until the next morning, where I got up to go birding, and it was a billion degrees, and it was really, really hot. I didn't have a good time. But then the hotel was very nice, where they put us up for this conference was quite nice. So I got to hang out with some of my coworkers in an outside of work setting. Went over our talks and everything, so it was fun. Minor complaint that I didn't get to see a single pitch of baseball, but I think that gets outweighed by the fact that I got to eat stadium hot dogs and beer. So, like, you know, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and we can deal with it. But anyway, we're gonna move into our bug soup that was from Tuesday night. Um, the the second night of the conference, we were there. So we're gonna move into soup. I have pulled some stuff already to dry, and I think this is going to be some interesting stuff. So we're gonna look at this first, and then we'll actually start pulling things out of the soup. These are like ingredients that have already been pulled to the side. Oh, they both nice ink pot. Very nice, very nice. Okay. Um, so for those of you that haven't been here before, this camera view that you're at right now, is actually the stage of my microscope. So here's my pair of tweezers here under here. So we're going to be able to, you guys can see stuff on here. We can zoom in, get pretty close up on things. I am going to be off to the side. I have my pinning board over here and ready to go. So I have some stuff on here that I need to put labels on, but I'll be mounting everything onto this piece of foam over here off to the side. It's not always the easiest to do all of that while it's in the microscope view, so I think we'll probably look at a lot of the stuff under the scope, and then I'll do the prep work kind of off screen a little bit. But the first thing that I wanted to start with, because it's timely, it's something that we have seen somewhat recently, but it's also cool how many things that we got. We're going to start right here. Who wants to tell me what's going on? Who this? Glacial, what's up? Where are you at? 10 months. Very nice. Like seeing all the new badges popping recently. Sick ass bug, yes, granola, but can anybody be more specific? We had our first. So the reason I brought this up and brought this out first is that we saw our first one of these on Chat Chats the other night. I don't think it was last week. I think it might have been the week before. But we saw our first one of these on Chat Chats. Eyes look crazy. Praying mantis. You're close, Bravo. Sort of. Unkadelic, yes. Mantis fly, very good. So, obviously, this does look like a praying mantis. That's undeniable. We don't need to belabor that. It has the raptorial or grasping forearms that you get with mantids. So you can see here the inside of the front part of the leg has these spines on it so that they can grab down and hold on to things. Yes, glacial. Yes, Neuroptera. So it has that. It has the sort of triangular head that you expect from mantids, but the wings are wrong. So let's look at the eye because it is very cool. Ooh. Tarzan's eyes just like alpha. Well, Lyndon, you're close. Yeah, I mean it's the same order. So there might be something there with how they're my light is a circle, Yalma. Here, if we turn it off and maybe does this light work enough? You can see where the light source is coming from, where like the differences in the color is, but it is a ring light here on the scope. So that is what you're seeing. This part here in the middle is the center of the flower, quote unquote, is the barrel of the microscope, and then the light around it is the ring. But yeah, this is Neuroptera. So unlike an actual praying mantis, which has leathery front wings called tegmina that are very similar to a grasshopper, you'll notice that the front and the hind wing here are both the same texture. Uh, they're clear, they're membranous. They have a lot of veins in them, or kind of nerves, quote unquote, if you will. Neuroptera, the order name for this group, means nerve wing. And so everything in this group, like mantis flies, owl flies, ant lions, lacewings, all that good stuff, they all have very membranous and very the wings have a lot of cross veins in them, make them like very, very busy and sort of net like. This one in particular is maybe lost a bit of his color right now. But originally looked like this. So this was it on the sheet. Much brighter green. So that's what it looked like IRL. Green is one of those bug colors that does tend to fade in alcohol like this. And typically when things that are green die in general, they start to lose some of that super bright color. Need to study entomology. Master Pimp Lord. Absolutely. This is the channel for you if you're interested. We got lots of bug stuff going on here. Antlions fly. Yes, bravo. The adults do. So the ones that the ones that you're familiar with are the larvae. So the immatures make those sand pits, but then they pupate just like a butterfly does. Uh, so they go into like a cocoon stage, and then the adult comes out and has wings and they fly. So most people are only familiar with the little guys in the ground, but they do turn into something else. Um, is that does that stream up? Yes, it is. Uh, bravo. I have a VOD for you. So that was a stream from May 18th, where we had live ant lions. I had the immatures that you're familiar with, but we talked a lot about the adults in there as well. So check that out if you want. I thought that was a pretty fun stream overall. And the other cool thing about our thanks, Bravo. Thank you, thank you. The other cool thing about what we all caught on Tuesday is that we got every single species of mantis fly that you can in Florida except for one. It's not that many. That could be like a very impressive number. The answer is 4. We got 4 different species. But uh that's still pretty cool when you almost hit that like you hit that like everything all at once. Um so pretty cool. Pretty cool that we got that. This is Zugomantispa minuta. Here to give links, so we'll drop that. Yeah, this is the species that we're looking at right now. How did he die though? Ellie, I put him in a vial of alcohol. They don't live super long. Their life history is really interesting. They're parasitoids, so they will lay their eggs, and then their larvae will crawl into spider eggs, and then feed on the spider egg sac. Rebecca, Thank you. Will feed on like the spider eggs that are inside of the egg sac. Um, as adults, I have tried to keep them before, like as a pet, and they get a couple months, but in general, they're not super long lived. A meeting, yeah. So, as I said, I am now just prepping them a little bit off camera. So, you have the little specimen now on the pin, ready to go. And the nice thing about having the foam available here off screen is you can see how the wings are all like straight up in the air. That's not ideal. There's a lot of space on this pin that's getting taken up. So with the foam, I can use other pins to hold those wings back while this dries. And then once it's totally dry, I'll be able to remove those pins and it will just stay like that. So that's why I like having the foam rather than just trying to pin it and leave it. Is you can arrange legs and wings and all that good stuff to be in a better position for long-term storage. And I'm also going to head down. So that was Zugomantispa minuta. This next one is Leptomantispa pulchella. Boom. And this is another small guy. So again, here we have that very mantis-like front end, as all mantispids are. But if you think about like what's really happening here, we've covered that all legs and all wings come off of the thorax, right? We've talked about that one before. Well, there are two pairs of legs back here that are attached directly under the wings. So this is all thorax. But also, just like mantids, this neck that goes out to here, that's the pronotum or the prothorax, which we're familiar with on other critters. And one of the ways that we can tell is if you look where these front legs are attached to the body, they're attached to this like very long segment here. So even though it's way out and the legs are way out in front, those legs are always attached to the prothorax and under the pronotum. So this one, rather than being green overall, is going to have a little bit more of a brown and yellow coloration. You can see that there, and you can also see some of the hairs going down here on the leg. And then it also has this almost complete dark band on the leading edge of the forewing. So from here over to here, You can see that like sort of brown front edge to the forewing. Um, and if you're keying these out, so if you're actually using the identification resources, which I was doing before stream, one of the things that keeps uh one of the things that groups these first two that we looked at, so the Zugomantispa and this Leptomantispa together, and separates it from the other ones that we're going to look at, are these hairs here on the back of the neck. So I didn't show them to you on the green one, but it also had hairs going on the back of its neck, except its hairs were up on little bumps. This one has hair on the back of the neck, but the hair is relatively flat with the pronotum. So if you're using the identification key, which is this Lacewings of Costa Rica key um, from 2008, they did the revision. Um, Using that, I was able to identify them to genus at the very least. And Leptomantispa pulchella is the only Leptomantispa that we have. So cool neck hair, bro. Don't know that that's a character we've really looked at before. But you can see this one died a little bit different than the Zugomantispa. The wings are down, the legs are tucked, it's already pretty straight, so I'm not going to do much with this. I am just going to put a pin in it off to the side here. What are the function of those hairs? Not really sure, Unkadelic. On the back of the neck, um, I can't really think of a reason why they would. Um, but it also doesn't have to be 100% functional. You know, it could just be, if you look at the difference between between any of these, it doesn't really tell you anything about their relatedness or anything like that, if they're closer or not. Um closely related or not. Um it's just something that you can use to actually help figure out what they are. Do I preserve my bug soup collection or just analyze what happens to them? Or um I keep the soup. I definitely keep the soup. It doesn't stay soup, Ellie. I don't know if you've been here when I've shown this view of the stream room, but my desk is here where you're looking. Just behind my desk over here, all of those cabinets are full of insect drawers. So I moved about 65 drawers with me from Arizona, and those are full of full of bugs. Not all of them, and not all of them are completely full. But we're probably in the realm of like 7 to 10,000 specimens in my collection. Um, and as a taxonomist, I use it a lot. Uh, Most of that is ground beetles. Most of that is the group that I work on, and it's reference material, right? It's just like a library. If I'm trying to look something up and try to figure out what something is, rather than, well, it's different for me because I work at a museum that's also very similar to this. But rather than having to contact a different museum to be like, hey, could you send me one of these? Like, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here. I just have it just over here. Um, I've got 85% of the genera of ground beetles in North America. Something like 30% of the species that are in the US. Um, Plus other stuff. I have a pretty decent scarab collection. I've got a pretty decent longhorn collection. I have the section that's like little bits of like every family sort of thing. So yeah, I keep the soup. um I have other vials that, like, this is from my trip to Kansas back in April that I need to work through still. I have some bug soup that left Florida with me in 2017. Uh I'm pretty sure it moved back with me last year. So I have a lot of stuff in my freezer, and part of the reason why I have all of that stuff, and it's just like, why, why don't I just catch up on everything before I collect new stuff? I should. I should be doing it that way. Um but the thing is, until we figure out time travel, I can't go back to places. Um I can return to the location, but I can't reproduce the exact timing and collecting conditions that were there. So, for instance, this place that we got all this stuff that we're going to go through today, I had never been there before. But I was there last Tuesday. If I go next week, the experience will be almost assuredly completely different. And maybe in like 20 years, and I still have some of this soup sitting in my freezer, maybe that piece of land that I was on gets plowed, or like demolished, plowed over, and paved, right? So I try to be good and I try to catch up and keep up with my collecting trips, but sometimes you just collect not too many things. You collect a lot of things in one night. Uh and so you end up with having a very large amount of things still frozen in your freezer many years after you actually collected them. So the idea is to unpin all of the soup. Does it happen? No. But we do have a lot of unpinned soup over there. So this next guy, this is another new one, a new genus for this right now. This is Dichromantispa. And this one is Dichromantispa interrupta. So again, we know that those neck hairs were important for separating those other two. If we look at the back of the neck here, it's smooth. There's there's no hair back here. So that's how we know it's something different than what's in either of those other two that we looked at before. And this one we can tell is Dichromantispa interrupta because it also has this brown border on the front of the wing, but then it has a break, or if you will, an interruption before having this little darkened spot at the tip of the wing. So it has this interruption right here that makes that Dichromantispa interrupta. No, wait. I lied. That's Sei. This one is interrupta. Like, it didn't look very interrupted here. This one, though. Come on now. What are we doing? What are we doing, guys? Bug on my soup wahoos. But yeah, so this one is Dichromantispa interrupta. I misspoke before. You can see now that there's this like dark patch at the end of the wing that wasn't present in. So these two that we're currently that we've got here, these are both the same genus, but they are two different species. Um, Not too much else to say about. Just that I did in fact miss one species that we have here, and it's a species that I have actually never seen. This is not my first rodeo having collected all the mantis flies in Florida. When I lived here back in the day, I distinctly remember getting really lucky at a gas station, and I think finding 3 of the 4 at one. Oh my god. See, this is this I'm going to show you this to keep me humble. I fucked that up. Look how not straight that is. That's that's dog shit. I need to readjust. Even the professionals mess up sometimes. It happens. Ophelia, that's insane. All right, we're a little bit better. Um, it overall it still looks maybe a little bit off center, but that's because the pronotum is lifted up. I'm gonna take care of that with with pins. So I will adjust that over here on our little foam board. I can make it lay a little bit flatter. But that just goes to show, even if you've pinned 10,000 bugs in your life, definitely more than that. I've only kept like 10,000. I don't have any real idea of how many bugs I've prepared in my life. It's a lot though. I uh I go through an average of like 3,000 pins a year. So, if that gives you any sort of indication of how many things I'm pinning a year. Here's the last little guy, and again you can see we want the pin to go like straight down here. So, through between the wings and out here between the legs. And these wings being up like this is a problem for that. So again, that's where we're going to use the pins to fold down. Cater Lenny, none. Uh, my current setup has hardwood floors in the lab, which is so nice. The head's still here. It's just behind the legs. You can see him looking up at you. How many pins are currently lost in the carpet? 0. How many pins have I lost in the carpet all time? So many. The big ones aren't really the problem. Um I have this is going to sound insane to people who like aren't me. I have found dozens of insect pins in the lint trap of my washing machine or of my dryer because they're like in a pocket or they get stuck in my shirt or my pants or something and they're just kind of around and they show up in the lint trap. Uh, I was when was the last time that I flew? I think it was when I was going back to Arizona earlier this year. Um, and I was like running across the airport because I had a stupid short connection flight, And I was trying to get over there, and my backpack, like, I was just like, "Ow, my god, like, what's happening? Like, something is stabbing me." There was an insect pin that had like been in my backpack for who knows how long, and it was sticking out through my backpack. And as I was running, my backpack was like bouncing against my back. It was just stabbing me repeatedly. um, I think I've told this story before. I think I've told the story before, and it's horrific. Um, there are what we call minution pins, which I can show you. Forget term. Yeah. Um. Anytime. Well, I say that, and I'm not going to do it right now, and it's going to scare me. Um. These are minutions. They're very, very small, very thin pieces of insect pin material. So you can see, like, here's the tip of a regular pin. You can see just how thin those are. You use these for double mounting specimens. So instead of doing what we're going to do later with the what we're going to do with the point punch, what you would do is you pin your little bug with one of those, and then you put the minution in this little piece of foam, and then you pin the piece of foam instead. So it's not a technique that we use for beetles a lot. Um, but being a good rounded entomologist, I have to have these on hand. These things are terrifying. They're so thin and so sharp that it's like hard to notice when you drop them, and you don't often notice until they're starting to stab you already that there's a problem happening. Um, I know a friend that dropped a whole little container like that on them, and they were just like sitting still in the lab, and we came over with a magnet desk toy to just like try to get them all off, and then they just took their shirt off and threw it away. Cuz like they can hang around for a long time. But uh we're done with the mantispids now. We'll move into beetles here in a second. But the scary story about these was told at one of the Entomology Collections Network meetings a couple years ago. There was a Lepidoptera curator, so somebody who works on butterflies and moths, who had permits to collect like in a state park or somewhere where like getting permits is actually kind of tricky. And so they would collect like all night. They would come back to the hotel and pin and process everything and then go back out the next day. Or, come back, sleep, pin and process, and then go back out. It was just a constant cycle of pinning and preparing things. For Microlepidoptera, like the really, really tiny moths, you always use double mounts like that. And they drop some into the carpet of this hotel. Almost every Lepidopterist that I know has magnets somewhere with them if they're working with minutions to like be able to pick them up. They thought they got everything. It was not a big deal. Uh Nothing happened. 3 months later, if not longer, she's mowing the lawn and has this like searing, stabbing pain in like somehow the middle of her foot. Not like she had stepped on something, but like the pain was in the middle of her foot. So they took her to the doctor. She got an X-ray, and the doctor was like holding it up and was like, this is very confusing. Like, you have something in your foot and it's like stabbing your nerve, which is why it hurts so bad. But like, I've never seen anything like this. And she looked at the x-ray and she goes, "Oh, I know exactly what that is. It's a minution." So, as far as I know, Yalma, it was just one. As far as I know from that story, it was just the one, but it had, she'd stepped on it and it got into her foot and then she didn't notice it. It's so small and they're so sharp, you like don't realize when they're stabbing you, which is so scary and so unfun to think about. But yes, this is the classic, like, this is the be careful story that you tell students when they're starting to work with these things, but it's actually true. It's like, it's, yeah, it's ugh, I hate minutions. I hate working with them. I actually think the first time that I told this story, I pulled one out, so I had them like in the forceps, and I went to go put it back into the little container, and I closed it up, and I think it was Roxer's. I think Roxer's was like dink donk, like it didn't go back in, and I looked back down at the base of the microscope, and sure enough, the minution was like sitting on the microscope. It did not make it back into the box. So always yee, always a bit scary when going through to use those. Certainly not my favorite. Yeah, absolute classic Roxers W. Nothing, we expect nothing less from him. All right. All right, back in the game, back in the soup. I want to move on before we get to Beatles to one of my other favorite groups. We've got some good earwig action going on here. So, one, two, three, four, and five of the big ones. These are all Labradora riparia, or the shore earwig. So we got five of them, but then we also picked up a couple of smaller earwigs. Time to lyric. Well, thanks for hanging out, Nikki. We'll probably be here for a while, so if you get bored, come on back. But in addition to the larger earwigs, this is a different family. This is one of the little earwigs, or the spongiformids. Little one of these. What do you? Oh, that's sick. Check that out, chat. It is very small, but look what's happening right now. Yes, Yalma. Correct. You guys see these growths sort of happening here up by the neck? Those are mites that are attached to this guy. So I'm gonna pull this one out. I'm pulling them off to the side right now onto a paper towel, just so some of the alcohol dries off. We can look at them a little bit better once they're dry. But I know I have more of those small ones in here. Here's a second. 3, 4. This ground beetle's hugging one. So this is 5 if I can get it. Five. Mites on something. Yeah. Bravo. It's kind of mites all the way down. Mites can get onto some really, really small stuff. Um yeah, casual. Like casual saying ants have mites, but uh there are mites that specialize on the like antennal insertion of ants. So it's sort of like how we have all those mites in our eyelashes and shit. Ants have a very like similar thing. Mites can just be like so ridiculously small that they are being seen in like some of these other groups. All right, most of what we have left that I care about is beetles, so that'll be good going forward. Care much for bugs. Hey, like Ophelia said, we're not. This is a very positive bug community, but not everybody cares for them in the same way. You can not, not be a biggest bug fan, but still, appreciate them and think they're kind of cool. There's a lot of people here in chat that don't do anything with bugs in their free time, but they come hang out here, so. All right, we're back. So this is the big one. This is Labradora riparia, or like I said, the shore earwig. And if we back here, we can see the thing that makes earwigs. They have these forceps-like or sort of tweezer-like tinctures on their abdomen that are officially they're called cerci. But a cerci or a circus is just like some sort of sensory structure on the tip of the abdomen. These ones in particular, we call them forcep like cerci because they look very similar to our forceps or our tweezers here that we use in entomology. Uh, CERCI is the plural. CERCUS for the singular. Why is a tooth like a lobster claw? Well, casual. They do different things with them. Uh, Other insects will have cerci as well, but these ones they sort of use them. It depends actually what sex they are, but females will use them to grab their eggs and rotate and clean the eggs. Males will oftentimes have some more exaggerated cerci, so maybe I only got females. That would be crazy. Um, so usually in males, the one side is a little bit more curved in than the others. These all look pretty straight. I don't know if that's this species in particular or what. I have to learn a little bit more about these. Um, but this is one of the largest earwigs that we have in the US. And this is not the smallest, but it's probably pretty close. So for these big ones, we are going to look to put the pin just right right here, right hand side. I have like a third of the way down. Um, these are not elytra. Elytra, technically only beetles have elytra. These are tegmina, so very similar to like a grasshopper or a praying mantis wing cover. But they, Fertilla, you never sent them to me. So I don't know nothing about them. Did you send them to me? Oh, yes, the ones that I got in Oregon. No, no, I didn't. I didn't really learn much about them. Very new collection, no worries. Okay, good. Thank you. Um, so the other thing that a lot of people don't know about earwigs is they do in fact have wings. The order name is Dermaptera, which means skin wing. So derm, like you think about like your dermatologist. Um, one of these, I don't know which one, actually like flew in and landed on my shoulder. So, uh, not something that people oftentimes think about, but under these little tegmina are these folded up wings that we can maybe take a look at. I've never unfolded one before. How the hell does this work? I have no idea how these unfold. We're starting to get there, but I think I'm tearing more than I'm doing anything. But you can see like how thin you can see how thin and like see-through that wing is. That's why they're called dermapters. They have just this like super super thin, almost skin-like wing. Up in the, I don't want a sack. Alley cakes aplenty. Hello. Um, but yeah, so those casual. That's disgusting. You've said a lot of bad stuff in chat. That might be up there with some of your worst. Um, Roach, hello. But yeah, so even though these aren't elytra, we're going to treat them as if they were. So in terms of like where we're going to pin the thing, again, we're off to the side here, off to the right hand side, and like a third of the way down. So we're gonna try and go in like right about there. And so we don't have a mix up like before. All my angles are good. And so now we've got earwig on the pin. And if you take the whole body into account, it maybe looks interesting. It's maybe not super flat. But we're going to fix that the over on the styrofoam board. So what we're going to do is we will eventually take another pin and use it to sort of pull down this abdomen so the body lies flat. So it'll dry like this rather than being curved up like that. So again, we keep everything nice and flat against the foam so it can dry. Uh, Takes a plenty. Allie, why this placement for the pin? Real noob. No problem. No problem at all. So a lot of it is sort of convention, like what has historically been done. If you have an insect, they are bilaterally symmetric. So if you divide them in half, they're the same on the left hand and the right hand side. And so if you put something straight through the middle, you might be ruining some of the characters and structures that meet like just in the center line of the body. So whenever you're pinning insects, you always do it off to one side. It's always off to the right. Probably because historically most people are right-handed. Uh it's what I've grown up knowing, it's what generations before me have come up knowing. If somebody like way back in the day was like, "Yeah, we're going to put it through the left." We'd probably be doing it through the left-hand side. But we keep everything off to the right-hand side so that way when you're putting the pin through, you're obviously, messing some stuff up on the underside. You're putting a pin through it. There's a big hole in it now. And so if you accidentally take a leg off or you break a structure or something that's on the right-hand side, in theory, your specimen will still have that same structure on the left-hand side that you're able to look at. So that's why we always do it off to the side, but we never want it uh like we never want it crooked, if that makes sense. So here's a beetle, just a little bit larger of a thing to look at than the little earwig we were doing. But the body is in this view like perpendicular with the pin. And if we turn it this way, it's parallel with the pin. So you want to make sure the insect is like as straight as possible in this direction and in this direction before you sit and let it dry. Um, so some of that is pin placement in terms of like where it actually goes through the body, but then some of it is using the styrofoam like we're talking about now. You can see here on those mantis flies that we were doing just a little bit ago, I have uh I have pins helping to hold down some of their stuff. So after it's there for a while and it sets, it'll dry flat and sort of in line. Case saw a crazy bug yesterday. What's up? What kind of crazy bug was it? If only you had picked up bugs as a hobby, right, my man? I didn't see a post in bug cord, so caterpillars falling from the tree. Interesting. That could be that could be a lot of things, actually. 'Tis the season for stuff to be growing. And so a lot of caterpillars will um they'll disperse like from where they're feeding to a different location to pupate. Um Sometimes they'll just do it up in the tree, and it's not walnut cat. Oh, okay. Yeah, Titana. That would make sense. Have you seen what those have you seen what the adults of those look like, Case? Did you look at those? At least. Ah, they look like stick. This genus I think is really cool. Like they look just like the cut off end of a twig. And so when you see them like this, it doesn't it doesn't really work the same way. But if you get one, surely there's got to be one on a stick that we can like this. That shit's crazy. It just looks like kind of a cut off end of a part of this twig. And everything in this genus looks like that. They all sort of have cut off that cut off stick end look to them. So if that's what it was, that's pretty cool. Lots of spunky moths. Yeah, Allie, that's unfortunate. Spunky moths are definitely a nuisance. Um, but all right, so I have four more of these guys to pin. Get through these real quick, and then we will move on to mounting some of the smaller stuff with some point mounting, which is a new thing that some of you new viewers have not seen yet. These are earwigs, Case. The shore earwig specifically, Labradora riparia. You've definitely seen earwigs before. Um, they're not in your ears. They're definitely not in your ears. Um, earwig actually came from when they used to have those like old powdered wigs sitting around, like the old timey judge or old timey George Washington hair. Um, and they got the name because they would sometimes, because those wigs would be like sweaty, kind of gross, and made of like natural fibers. Um, the earwigs, which naturally like kind of decaying, gross, natural fibers, would show up in people's wigs. So the name came much later than our actual like discovery of the bug. And it's a completely human reason why we associate them and like why they're called earwigs. Roach. No, because there are no stupid questions here. You may ask your question. Why does it look like it has electro? Well, sort of. Uh, it does have wing covers, but they're not hardened like you would expect them to be in a beetle. There's also not any sort of internal uh striations with this. So beetles will have striae on their elytra. So pick another random guy here. So this big click beetle, you can see has these lines that sort of go down the length of it. That is one of the characteristics that like adds to an elytron being an elytron. Where if you look at this on the earwig, this is a tegmen or a tegmina is the plural. It's sort of leathery and not very hard, and there's also no uh striations on this to like help support anything. But people do confuse these with rove beetles a lot because they, yes, glacial. Excellent. I was just getting there. They do. They're not super defined externally all of the time. But if you flip them over and actually look at the underside, you can see that they have those little supporting lines. So I have heard people refer to these as elytra before, but like on a technical level, they're not. And we're, that's the best kind of correct. Right? Technically correct. Um, I don't know that I have any. I didn't pick up any staphylinins the other night. I don't have one like readily available that we could look at. But yes, source, dude, just trust me. Um, actually, yeah, like Minecraft Electra. Have you have you sped run at all, Case? I feel like I saw your stream the other night where you were learning uh 1,000 frog calls, but that happened far too late for me to join in. But I haven't seen you running at all. Dude, calls are so hard. I in high school I was on the Envirothon team, which is like team outdoor Jeopardy. Uh and we had to learn frog calls and bird calls. And at the time, I couldn't commit them. I just couldn't get them. But now being birder, now being into birds, I'm a lot better with calls. I'm still miles better at identification, like visually. um but after a while you do start to pick up on like common birds in your area. So I get it, but having to like specifically learn them for tests is really difficult to commit that many things to memory in one go. The only thing, I wouldn't say only thing, but one of the things that I remember from that as a youngster back in the day, is that green frogs sound like somebody plucking a rubber band. And I only remember that because my connection with that was like, oh, green frogs sound like rubber bands being plucked, like someone's in a band, and Green Day is a band. And that's how I like made that connection, uh to remember that one specifically. Bird mnemonics, people will have like phrases that they say, or being like, "Oh yeah, this bird says this," and it's sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. I sound like ducks. Bird ones never make chickadees say cheeseburger. Yeah, that's a very common one. They ptarmigans say bagel. Duck sounds harpy eagle. Chuckwell's widow. Yeah, that's one I never understood. Um, the one that I think does actually sound like they say it does. Um, John, thank you for the 8 months. The one that I do think sounds like what they say it does is the white-throated sparrow. White-throated sparrows, the thing that they tell you to remember is the Canadian national anthem. Oh, sweet Canada, Canada. So I have the tab pulled up and I think it'll play for you guys too. So that one I get. I think that one's like pretty solid. Um, but when I hear it now, like out in the wild, I don't go like, oh, sweet Canada, that's a white-throated sparrow. I've just connected it like, oh, this is just a white-throated sparrow. Thanks, Ophelia. we let me I don't know how this works. I'm a call probably. Yeah. Anyway, uh here. Um yeah, woodcocks are fun. Christ. Uh yeah, that's a fun bird. I've always liked those. Arizona has only had two ever confirmed sightings of American woodcock, and I was not yet into birds enough to chase the first one, but the second one showed up not too long before I left, and I did in fact go see that one. Casual, have you ever used the Merlin app? Merlin app. It's really helpful for uh it's very helpful for like learning. Oh, Allie, you gotta get in on this. Yeah, it was made by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and what it does is they trained it on like a ton of recorded bird calls. And not just calls, but songs too, because calls and songs are different. And then some birds will have like alarm calls. It'll also pick up the takeoff whistle of like mourning doves because they have those special feathers that make them sort of whistle as they fly. Um, it's trained up on a bunch of those bird sounds, and then it listens to what you have, and then it matches the spectrogram of like what you're hearing to its library of stuff, and it tells you what you're hearing. It's a great learning tool. It is not infallible. Um, it has it has definitely misidentified stuff that I'm looking at, and it tells me the wrong thing. But it's a great place to start if you're like, oh, like what's that bird that I'm hearing that I hear all the time? You just let it click, it picks up with your phone, and then you're like, oh, okay, I recognize that now as a cardinal. And then you start down the rabbit hole of like, oh, that was a cardinal. What's this one over here? This is something else. It's not roach. It's definitely not. It might not have as much coverage in Australia. Uh, but I had it working in Thailand for me. Which was super helpful because that was my first time birding outside of the country, and I didn't have a guide or anything. It was just me and my field book and my binoculars and Merlin like trying to track things down. Um so coverage is different in different parts of the world, but like uh I imagine Australia is pretty well birded. Um so I think that it would probably do pretty good down there, but uh you'll have to test it out and report back. So what we're working on now are going to be these small earwigs. And the process for these is just a little bit different than what we use for the big ones. Primarily because if I were to, let's say, stick a pin through one of these guys, uh, I'll take a pin like this. This is like my normal size bug pin. If I were to stick this pin through this bug, I'm gonna ruin it. It's not going to work very well because this pin is going to obliterate this little earwig that we've got. So the technique for this is called pointing, and we use these little paper triangles, and we're going to glue the bug to the triangle, and then we eventually put the pin through the point. So the specimen will end up looking like this. You can see there beetle on the end of the paper triangle, and the paper triangle on the pin itself. So that's what we're going for. And I'm not using anything fancy. I am just Elmer's glue. And what I do, and not everybody does this. Yeah, it picks it up. Very cool cat. Well, hopefully you figure it out. What I do is I put a little bit of glue on my thumb, and I then just have this little puddle of glue here that I can dip my points into as needed. So I take the little triangle and I need to bend it just a little bit because I like that extra shelf that happens when I bend it. This, this. So I have this little bent. Oops, you're not on the screen. My bad, my bad. I have this little bent paper triangle here with glue kind of in that little cavity. And then for this one, focus and just apply to the side. I like to go between the second and third pair of legs. So I accomplished that there. And now you can see that there's this little triangle here glued to the side of the earwig. Now, I don't have as much control over the final body shape. So with the big earwigs, I was able to um like pin it down and arrange legs and arrange antennae and things like that. For stuff on points, it's a bit more of a free for all. Uh because they're on the point, you don't really get the option to move legs and do stuff like that. If I really need it to be super symmetrical and flat and look nice, I will pin the very small thing and like arrange all the legs, but not put a pin through it. So I'll just use pins to arrange everything. And then once it's dry, I will come back and apply the point after the fact. That is a very rare case in which that needs to happen. Um, but it's what I. This is sort of what the next step is. After this dries, which I'm going to flip it back over so it does, it'll dry looking like this, and then I'll put the pin through the point over here, like where my forceps are. Pickle! Hello. Thank you for the daily dose. What do we got? We got feet for you. We got some little earwig toes. We got some little earwig toes here for you. Ooh. Ah. Tiny toes. Yeah. It's this is a 50x microscope, so it gives us like a 50 times zoom. Someone did say uh like half jokingly banana for scale. Um I don't have a banana, but I do have a ruler. So this whole thing is like 6 millimeters long, maybe. Pin through the point first and gluing. Glacial, that is how like 95% of people do it. Um I've I've explained it before. My method is definitely not like the standard one, but I think it works better. Um Gluing or pinning the point first and then gluing stuff onto it is so much faster. Like so much faster. And I can do pretty quick at the way that I do it if I'm not yapping with you guys. Um I can get like upwards of 100 specimens per hour if I'm like really cruising. But I like it this way because I leave it sit here on the microscope stage. So I just leave it sitting here on the floor basically, and it keeps the top of the body in line with the point because they're both sitting on the same flat surface. So like this, the point is sitting flat. I can arrange the body a little bit so it's also sitting flat. And when this completely dries, the top of the point and the top of the specimen are going to be on the exact same plane. So it's going to stay flat. This is how I was taught to do it in an ant lab, and this is how I have now like always done my points. Um but it is not fast, and it is also not like what most people teach. Yeah, so that's the other thing glacial is that these dry flat and you don't have to worry about them drooping as they dry, which is another reason why I like this so much. Come in side, pull it off. But we won't pull this one off just yet, because this is the one that had the mites. Poor guy. These are like so big compared to surely gets to a point where the bugs get so small you have to put them in labeled in a jar. No. That's quitter's talk, Roach. Let me uh let me do this one more earwig and I will get you my smallest bug. You're right. I can't point a springtail, but not because I don't have the skill to, but because springtails will dry out and be useless if they're not kept in ethanol. So for a lot of that really small stuff, you do put it in alcohol because a lot of the time it has like a less dense exoskeleton and they can dry up and shrivel if you let them dry out like that. But it is not an Evans skill issue. Uh and frankly, rude of you to suggest that it is. Let's see. Get some small stuff. Let's see if Ellie's still here. This is why you keep reference material on hand. So you can so you can show Roach how things are done. All right. That's the bug. Can't you see it? It's right there. It's so clearly right there. Okay. Um so the lowest magnification that this microscope can do is 7 to 7x. So keep in mind, this is the same size point as the one that we were just looking at on the earwig. So this is the same size piece of paper, and there is the little beetle there at the end of it. So that's 7. This is 10. This is 20. It's 30. This is 40. And this is 50. So this is as far as we can zoom in on this. See, but now you've covered his entire body in glue and paper. Wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you not see the perfect glue attachment? Not covering anything underneath, not covering anything on the top. Thank you, Roach. Thank you. Just giving you a hard time, but I am truthfully very proud of this mount. This is an Acalyptoaceid. Or an Acalyptoaceid scavenger beetle. This little guy right here. It feeds, as far as we know, on like old in decaying pine needles. Uh, so somebody asked, Bravo, how do you even see it to catch it? You don't. That's the thing. This is a type of beetle that you go to habitat and then you hope you accidentally pick some up. So this was in pine needles that we sifted. So we have a contraption that has like a little layer of mesh in it, and you just shake it up a whole lot. And there is the mesh is big enough that like pine needles and sticks and whole leaves and rocks and all of that stuff sort of stays up and you can get rid of it, but you're knocking down all of the stuff that's alive and all of the like super tiny things. It funnels down into like a pillowcase, and then you bring it back and you run it through a Berlazy funnel. We've done it on stream before in like a small format. The Berlazy funnel is actually right up above me here because I'm still thinking about using it some more. But you put it on top of more mesh, and then you put your sifted, so now like really concentrated section of dirt into this funnel, and you put a light on top of it. The light makes these critters that are typically in leaf litter go, oh no, I've been exposed, like something has flipped over my rock. So they will start crawling downwards. What it also does is it will dry this material from the top layer down. And these sorts of little critters that want to be in leaf litter also don't want to be dry. So their uh natural next step is to dig to get down a little bit deeper. And so eventually with the heat and with the light, things will just crawl straight down and they fall through a mesh, go into a little funnel, and then you collect them in a little cup. Uh you can do this a bunch of times and not get the one sort of thing that you're looking for. So this was not the target that I was after when we did the sifting sample, but it ended up being pretty cool anyway. So uh it's not something, Bravo, that you would find in nature and then be like, oh, I am specifically going to pick this up. This is, you go to habitat, you know a little bit about where they could be found, and then you do your best to find some, or to find things habitat that looks good, and then bring it back. There's no way that we would see this. Um, it's hard to show how big it is here, but I do have um favorites. So I have him here on a millimeter scale. This is from when I first collected it. So if I were to move it over, like between the lines, this thing's a millimeter long. It is quite tiny, and it is the smallest thing that I have ever personally collected, I think. Um, but there is smaller. So, Teleods or featherwing beetles are the smallest non-parasitic uh insect that we know of, and they are something like 0.3 millimeters. So this was 1 millimeter long. Imagine something that is 3/10 of a millimeters long. That is the smallest non-parasitic insect, but the smallest parasitic insect. Let me pull the picture up here for then. Um, is a fairy wasp. Vegetarian sausage roll and coffee. Ooh, that does sound good, Rook. I would eat that. Um, this is a fairy wasp, which is the smallest insect that we know of. This is 0.127 millimeters long. This is an amoeba. This is a paramecium. This insect, which is a multicellular creature, is smaller than these two single celled organisms. This is the smallest insect that we currently know of, and it is 1/10 the size of uh of this one that we were just looking at. So 1/10 of this guy is how big the fairy fly is. Which, not a fly, it's a wasp. How did we find that? Same way, Flumgoon, they're not going to be in soil and things like that. These are going to be oftentimes coming into traps of some sort, and people are sorting them and finding them in the lab. There are Mimerids that get a little bit bigger that you would be able to see like with your naked eye, but most of the time you don't find them until you get back to the lab. What does it feed on? Good question, Bravo. They're egg parasitoids of other egg parasitoids. So a lot of wasps, the majority of wasps actually, reproduce by laying their eggs in some other uh some other sort of insect. If you've ever seen the caterpillars that have like all of the little white cocoons coming off of it, that's because it's been parasitized by a braconid wasp. Doing that makes something a parasitoid, and then there are multiple layers to this. So a hyperparasitoid is a parasitoid of a parasitoid of a regular organism. And the furthest depth that we get there, we are aware of hyperparasitism up to 7 layers deep. So, like a parasitoid in 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 a host. So these mimerids, these fairy wasps, are egg parasitoids of other egg parasitoids in various groups. So parasitoidception, yes. Parasitoids all the way down. So I have no idea what they're feeding on as adults. They very likely might not feed as adults. Um, but yeah, that's what they do. That is their whole strategy. And they have these like remarkably uh thin wings. So if you look at this on the wasp itself, this is what the end of the wing looks like. And so rather than having like full membranes like you uh you have the full membrane like you would on like a normal insect wing. This just has hairs. Like this just has hair paddles. Um they're less dense than air currents. So they do not need to have the membrane to be able to support themselves and to fly through the air. They just need these hairs to like create enough drag to let them go. So you see this in really small stuff. Featherwing beetles are called that because their wings also look like this. But fairy flies sort of take it to the extreme with stuff like this. So all of that is to say, bugs can get real tiny, and working with some of them, the beetle that we're looking at, this guy here, I can identify this with a microscope. Um, Not this one. This is only on 50x. I have another one that doesn't have a camera mount, and I wish it did. Um, that goes up to 100, I think. So twice as much magnification as we're getting right now. But to your credit, Roach, this thing, this is a scanning electron microscope. So this little tiny wasp was sputter coated with metal, and then we had to scan the electrons of that metal to get this look at it. So, in complete fairness, this thing is not getting mounted on a point. But for beetles, we generally can and do mount stuff that's that tiny. Yeah, yeah, they can vibes. They absolutely can fly. So, anyway, that is our tiny bug tangent. I will put these away after stream. And so now the next step, by now all of our glue has dried, and it is time to flip the specimens over and get them on the pins. So to do this, woobly, thank you. So to do what we are about to do, I have this incredibly high-tech piece of equipment. This is about a 1-inch thick cut of a phone book that has been rolled and taped up. What this does is the imagine I made this with money. That would actually be so sick. But what this allows us to do is that the pin can go through the pages, but is still relatively supported on all sides. So, what we do with this is we take the edge, like over here, for instance, and we grab our specimen. So I'm holding it by the point, and I'm leaving enough room for the pin to go back here. And so I will then just come in with the pin. Can't really see it because my fat fingers are in the way. But so the pin is now in here, and I can push this all the way down, and now I have a nice point mounted insect specimen. Um, and you don't have to use this rolled up piece of phone book. It is not a necessity. I think it is, but it's not for everybody. The problem with using other stuff, so like this is a piece of just like styrofoam. This is what's in the bottom of the trays that we keep the bugs in. If I were to just lay a point here and try to pin it like this, the foam is not sturdy enough. So when I go to push in, the point bends. And so when I do get through, um, the point ends up looking like this, with this giant bend in it, which is no good for nobody. The foam that I'm actually putting the specimens on is probably dense enough, but I love my rolled up piece of phone book. If rolled up piece of phone book doesn't have any fans, then I'm dead. Um, but yeah, this is the process. This is the next step. And this is also the part that people like get worried about with my pointing technique is because you have to flip it over. There's this like extra step of flipping over the specimen, where you can break off legs or you can break off antennae or whatever. But just don't do that. Just don't do that. This or and is it special glue? No, it's Elmer's. Um, there is a lot of discussion about glue and what should be used. Um, there there's different thoughts with it, right? Elmer's is water soluble. So if I accidentally do what Roach thinks I do and glob everything up and just cover a bunch of bugs with glue, I can reverse it. I can just put them in water, I can rinse them off, and it gets reversed. That's like a pro of doing this. A con of using this is that it's water soluble. So if you live in a really humid place, let's throw something crazy out there, like, I don't know, like Florida. You're in Florida and you accidentally leave some stuff outside, your glue can rehydrate and your stuff can fall off the points. There is a dehumidifier in this room for this very reason. We can't be having that happen. So for a long time, I was paranoid about stuff falling off of points. So I switched to. Do I have any? Do I have some? I don't, unfortunately. I switched to shellac gel, which is an insect based product. It's like a thick sort of. It's like brownish in color, and it's the sticky resin stuff that comes out of scale insects, and it is not water soluble, so your specimens can get as wet as they want and they won't come off the point, but it is still alcohol soluble. So if you need to remove a specimen from a point, you can still do it with ethanol, but it won't come off in water. There are other things that people will use historically. Everyone, like everybody's favorite glue for doing this was Martha Stewart extra tacky craft glue. It got discontinued. They do not make Martha Stewart extra tacky anymore. So people have switched up. They talk about doing other things. You wouldn't want to. Yes, Woobly. I don't know what it was because the glue got discontinued when I was in undergrad, so I didn't really get to use it a ton. You're hella beautiful. That's so nice, Fading Star. Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, so yeah, everybody, the Martha Stewart stuff specifically was like what everything was up, what everyone was up about. Um, there's also other discussions to have of like what's archival and not, like what's going to happen in 100 years to Elmer's glue. Like, does it hold up for that long? Would it make more sense to use like a PVA glue, like a polyvinyl acrylate, like a super glue? Would super glue make sense? Well, super glue doesn't dry super clear, and you also need to use harsh chemicals to reverse it. And so that's bad for DNA. With Elmer's glue, it's water washable. You can just wash it off, and there's no harsh chemicals in it, so you can still get DNA out of this sort of stuff. Um, this is a riveting discussion, I am sure. There was a whole 2-hour symposium on glue in entomology collections at the Entomological Collections Network in 2017, I believe. Um, it's something that entomologists are very passionate about. You talk to some people, they have like very strict, like, I only use this. And like, there are still some people that have Martha Stewart craft glue because they hoarded it after, like, when they announced they were getting rid of it, they like bought up a bunch. But I have switched to going back to just using Elmer's, because it's non-toxic, it's not acidic as well, so like in theory it's probably fine, like long term for collections and whatnot, but we don't really know, right? Like who was the first one to use Elmer's glue, and who knows how long that specimen's going to last. In, you know, 30 years from now, all of my stuff that's on points could be magically not on points anymore because of the glue that we use, but like we just don't really know yet how that works. Um so there has been in-depth discussions. I use Elmer's. This is it. It's not fancy glue. It can get way more fancy, but for our purposes, Elmer's glue is all we need to worry about. Okay. Holy shit, it's 8 p.m. already. 2 hours. Time flies when you're having fun, chat. Uh use Do y'all call it kindy? I've never heard that. Also, Roach with the 12-month Calisoma Screwtator badge. Dan! Hello, hello. Thank you for the sub. Wow. I didn't know y'all called it kindy. Okay. So, because I'm going slower, I'm going slower than anticipated, we will pick out a select few to work on now. And I will just have to get to the rest of them a little bit later, because I did not eat dinner before we started. So we'll probably go to like 9 before I have to call it. So that means, of course, that we're going to mount up the most important thing, the ground beetles. The Lomus, that's a cool little guy. Little guy. Pull that out. We'll see what we can do with maybe dissecting scarab. How many 1-year subs do I have? Roach, I think I think it's just you and Roxers right now. But I could be wrong. It's coming up though. Um you are so good at Dirge. I'm actually not entirely sure how 12 months has already happened because uh I haven't been streaming for 12 months. But yeah, some people already have it, so I don't know. Also, this is root beer, not regular beer, just beer of the root. Oh, tortilla. Yeah, tortilla's probably pretty close. Sorry for the 12. That makes sense. Anyway, yeah, so that's where we're at. We're close on a year here, which is crazy. Uh Fastback, this is Sprecher. Um I have a friend, um Golden Eagle, hello, welcome in. Um one of my good friends at work, she unfortunately just left her fiance, who's also like the homie. I'm gonna allow you to say that, Rich, but then I'm going to time you out. 18 seconds. Because that was rude, and I think you're wrong. um, My friend at work left. Her and her fiance are moving out to Arizona, which is very sick for them. Very sad for me because I'm losing my friends. But they have a list of like 60 plus root beers that they like. And Sprecher is one of their top. I agree, Plumgoon. You're not wrong. But this is apparently the Sprecher Fire Brewed, and this one is okay on their list, but the Sprecher Maple is like their second best root beer that they've ever ranked. Um this is really good. I had to stop at Ace Hardware on the way home to get glue, to get spray adhesive for a project that I'm working on, and I just so happened to see this, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna grab up on some of that." St. Arnold's. Okay. So Plumgoon, there's another thing that they have um at Ace Hardware, at least they did in Arizona, called Frost Top. Like, really, Eagle, that's cool. Um yeah, they have Frost Top sarsaparilla that they like, and it's really good. But I had to try this because my friend's leaving and it was very sad. Uh, so I have Sprecher. Anyway, I saw someone I saw somebody say responsible bug pinning. I I've pinned more than a few of these with a couple beers in me. Don't get it twisted. This is an activity you can in fact enjoy after after a few. Do these Orion beer? Ooh. Well, good for you, Rocksters, that uh there is a um like Latin American store very close to my Ace Hardware store. It's where I had to go to it's where I went and got all my chilies for our chili cook-off at work last year. Yeah, Rocksters, I would imagine they do have it. I would imagine they do. I'll go look for it. What is this? Iron beer? So what were the recommendations? I saw Iron beer, I saw St. Arnold. Um, is Ace Hardware like Bunnings? I'm gonna have to Google that because I don't know what Bunnings. Yes, it is in fact sort of like a chili from Ace Hardware. That would be crazy. No, the market next door had all of the dried chilies that I used to make my chili recipe last year, and I was one vote off from dethroning the reigning champion. And it was only after me being at that job for like 3 months. Um, so I'm coming back with a vengeance this year. I am set and very excited to lock in on my chili recipe. Last October, I made this like massive batch. I'm making it scaled up sort of thing. I tried like 4 or 5 different chili recipes over the month. I had so much damn chili in my house. It was insane. I was eating it on so many things. My stomach was so upset for a lot of the time. But finally I like honed in on this recipe that I really, really liked. Um and yeah, I was very proud of it. It was quite good. Um and it was just like a very traditional meat chili. I did put beans in it, so for all you Texas guys that are gonna yell at me for that, like, you know, chain me up, that's fine. Um, but I had this really like I roasted all the peppers, I rehydrated everything. I had a can of chipotle peppers. Uh there was like a quarter cup of dark chocolate chips in it, which really like went nuts. My chili is pretty damn good. I'll say that. All right, let's get back to it. All right, ground beetle. This is an exciting ground beetle. This is Morion manilicornis, and this is a ground beetle that you really only find under pine bark. And so we got to this site and we were setting up on Tuesday for this collecting event that didn't happen. And we got the light up and everything, and I was like, well, there's a log. I'm gonna go check my log. And I pulled off this little chunk of pine bark, and right under it was this beetle. And this is not uncommon by any means. This was like a really I sort of like idealized this one in my mind. Because there is an Arizona species of this genus that is like super rare that I never actually found one. Um, but this is a pretty common Eastern thing. I've probably collected like a dozen of these at least since I've been here. So uh it's not rare, but it is still exciting to me because I'm like, ooh, Morion, this is great. But it's called Manila Cornus because it has what we call maniliform antennal segments. So, do you see how, as opposed to being like elongate, the antennae sort of look like a string of beads or a string of pearls? See it there? Uh, how long are bug specimens viable after they've died? Can you, what do you mean by viable? Long time is the answer, but I want to see what specifically you're asking. Oh, if you keep them in the freezer indefinitely, if you keep them in ethanol like these guys were indefinitely, um, if you just leave them out, most of them will dry and you can rehydrate them. Only some like really big things. Oh, from death when you collect them. Uh, that depends on a lot of things. So beetles are they're obviously what I work on the most. And beetles have their hard exoskeleton, but they're not usually like super juicy. They don't have like really big abdomens unless you're talking about like the big Hercules beetles and stuff like that. And so because they've dried out, you can rehydrate them with like steam or hot water. With beetles, it's really nice because you can just like actually throw them in hot water and they steep. If you guys have, I've definitely posted pictures of like beetle tea before. I have a little tea strainer that I put the beetles in, soak it in hot water. But you can't do that with like a butterfly. You can't do it with a butterfly because all the stuff will fall off. So for that, what you do is you put them in a container, uh, inside of a bigger container, or hot water on the outside container, and then just cover it so it sort of steeps. And so it steams. It's sort of like a sauna, and it will rehydrate those muscles enough for them to be able to, be flexible to move around. Uh, that's a thing, like I said, that you help to do with beetles a lot. You can just throw them in water. It's great. Um, and so there is a distinction. Fast back though, bug soup is the sample pre-sorting. So this is bug soup because this is just all kinds of stuff mixed up here in ethanol. But what ethanol does is it will over time dry out the membranes inside of the body. So these are still fresh. I collected these less than a week ago. So everything's pliable. I should still be able to dissect these no problem. But if you leave them in like 90% ethanol, like high proof alcohol, it really tenses up these membranes that are on the inside and it makes it hard to dissect that way. Um, so in some cases, if they're in ethanol, I will still rehydrate them just to sort of flush the ethanol out and to get those muscles limbered up again. So we're able to move legs, move antennae, and things like that without breaking. But yes, bug soup is specifically like the raw sample. Beetle tea is when it's being rehydrated in water. And the reason why I call it beetle tea specifically is I have a kettle, just like an electric kettle that you use to make tea, that I use to boil the water for the beetles. And then I will pour it into a beaker, but that beaker is sitting on top of a Mr. Coffee cup warmer. It's like the coaster that has the plug in that's supposed to keep your coffee like at least somewhat warm. And so no, fastback, they're not. They're not at all. These are just what I say. Um, and so the I use that little coffee warmer so the hot water that I pour in stays warm and I can work through like, if there's 50 beetles in there, if I were to just use the regular hot water, no coffee warmer, it would rehydrate, but then they would get kind of cold and maybe like tense up again. If you keep the water hot, everything stays sort of pliable. So I call it beetle tea because it's on like a teacup warmer when I'm doing it. I also have one of those little like tea uh tea infusers, like where you squeeze it, you put your loose leaf tea in there, and you put that in the cup. I'll do that if I have like really small specimens, so they don't get lost like under the legs or under the wings of bigger beetles. But no, beetle tea is just a joke. I don't drink it. Um, there has been discussion of somebody gifting a lot of subs at one time, or if I think it was 100 gifted, um, we would drink the beetle tea, but I couldn't do that right now because I only have stuff that's in ethanol, and lab ethanol is not safe to drink. So it would have to be beetle tea, where I've soaked them after they've been collected, or I could do a stream where I collect things into like a falcon tube full of vodka and then drink that afterwards, and that would be worth the 100 subs. I just have to be careful about what I caught cuz like I love you guys and 100 subs is a lot, but I am not drinking dung beetle water. That's simply not happening. So uh again, here we've got our beetle. Bug shot. This is great. There's a little bit of cleaning that we got to do right now. Do you see this flap here? This is the wing sticking out. So we are just going to tuck that back in. Keep the electric closed. And now we are ready to put the pin in. Beetles and vodka. Hey, that's true. Little poo never hurt no one. Cater Linney, I think you're wrong. I think ingesting poo has like notoriously hurt a lot of people. I think that's just like factually an incorrect statement. So I think we've looked at these guys before. But another thing, in addition to those little beaded antennae, another thing that you use to help identify these are this outer set of punctures. So right now we're looking totally laterally on the side of the elytra, and there's this big series of dots that kind of go down right here where the pin is covering right now. And might be too um so here we have this we have this row of punctures that are pretty large, pretty noticeable, but there's a groove that connects all of them. It's like a little zigzag that goes back and forth between the holes along the side. And that zigzag is only found, in the US at least, in this genus. It's a characteristic that is only present in this tribe worldwide. But this genus is the only one that we have in the US. So that little zigzag pattern, you can see maybe a little bit here. You can sort of see how it like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So pretty easy on that one. I knew who that was in the field as soon as I picked it up. So we don't have to do anything too crazy with this. This is also a species that I've collected recently enough that I do have a DNA voucher for it. Part of my Ground Beetles of Florida project is I'm trying to get DNA. Yeah, Caterlini, where it looked like dots. Um, I'm trying to get fresh DNA material from all of the ground beetles in the state, which is like 430 some odd species. So every time I collect a new one, um, I will take a back leg off and send it to our molecular lab to sequence for me. So not only will this project that I'm working on, like very long term, have maps and collecting localities and like how to identify it down to species, all of that will be in there, but it's going to have this accompanying DNA library. It's not going to mean much. Like you're not going to be able to like look at the DNA sequence and be like, ah, yes, that is what this is. But only like 19% of all ground beetle species that are found in Florida have any DNA record online. So I've already done about 30 sequences. Um, and uploaded those. So like for the first time, these species are getting their DNA sequenced from Florida at least. So it's a little bit different how it changes around the US. But DNA, so a voucher specimen is something that you're able to look back on and sort of verify what the identification was. So for any sort of project where you're doing identifications, it is very important to have a voucher specimen so that that way you can uh back it up just a second. Um like we were saying earlier, you have these collections to be able to go back and like verify what these things are. And I have so much backlog because I can never go back to a certain place at a certain time and collect there again. So, for something like an ecological study where you're reporting your findings, uh, you can never, like, somebody reading your paper can never go back 3 years and collect the same places that you did. And so, one of the main, like, tenets of science is to be repeatable. If someone does the same exact experiment the same way that you do, they should still get the same answers that you do. But you can't really do that with ecology because you can't, again, you can't go back and like get the same stuff. So that's why you have voucher specimens, which is like a subset of your total sample that you would put in a museum and say, like, okay, for this project, this is what I was calling species A or species B or Scorites subterraneus or whatever. Like, this is a representative of what I called that species. So in 5, 10, 1,000 years from now, somebody wants to look back and be like, oh, I wonder like how Evan's IDs were. They can go to my vouchers and they can look, and even if my identification was wrong, which they're not, they're not wrong. Uh, even if my identification is wrong, they can still get the numbers and be like, oh yeah, this species was actually this other one, blah blah blah. They should still get the same answer that I do. Voucher specimens are like the key to making ecological studies repeatable because other people can come and verify your identifications like way down the line. Um, DNA vouchers are the same thing, right? So I'm saying, like, we'll take, if I were to take a leg from this guy that we're looking at right now, he would go into a collection, which I do have set up for this DNA project, where it's like, yes, this is a representative of this species, and this is the exact individual that we got that DNA sequence out of. Like, this is the guy that's missing a leg because we ground his leg up and ran it for DNA. So that way, if we get anything weird, if it comes back like, oh, this was supposed to be a ground beetle, but our sequence is saying that it's a butterfly. Uh, if it was something that bad, there's contamination on the sample. But like, if this one that we're looking at now comes back as this other species that we just pinned, somebody could look at that and go, oh, that seems weird, like let's go back and double check the voucher. and see if it is actually the thing that they uploaded it as. Yes, quality control. That is a great way to explain it. Um, so yeah, we keep all that stuff uh indefinitely. So this next one is a cool little guy. Scarady. Off. So this is Scarides. Um, he has a very distinctly snatched waist right here, which is characteristic of this and its relatives. And then the thing that you use specifically for this genus is here under the head. They have really wide um these really wide divides right here between the gena and the paraglossa. So there is a very distinct sort of trough right down here, right on this side. That is unique to this group within the ones that have that snatched waist. So this is a very common genus. Some ID guides from the 80s identifying pose. Well, both of those could be possible. Moonbeam, are you in the bug cord yet? Exclamation point bug cord. Um, so we do have a Discord server here. It's not really used for discussion of the streams aside from the notifications, but you're more than welcome to post stuff in there and sort of generate that ID discussion. Things definitely have changed. Names have changed a lot since the 80s. Um, but in general, things that are in the area probably haven't changed a ton. So, um, definitely worth a shot. We're always happy in Bugcord to check stuff. Yeah, Library for Guides is great too. Um, we've missed the most recent one. But Princeton University Press does an annual, or sometimes multiple times per year, does a sale on some of its books. And the field guide that I recommend to everybody, it is by far the best insect field guide that I've ever used. Um, is one of the ones that goes on sale often with that. And you can get it for like 60% off sometimes, so it's only like 15 bucks. Um that's definitely something that I will keep an eye out for, and I post about that when it happens in Bugcord, because there's a lot of good there's a lot of good reference material books in there. So I'm just gonna arrange the legs on those last two that I pinned. We had two of the Scorides, and that genus in particular is not very difficult to identify unless you're in Florida. There are there are 7 species in the U.S. No, there are 9 species in the U.S. 5 of them can be found in Florida, and most other places only have like one or two options. Um, so these ones, because of where they were found in Florida, these were up in like the Jacksonville area. These are very likely Scorites subterraneous, which is the most widespread one and the most common one that we have. The other ones in Florida tend to be more like Central Florida and south of that. So probably not going to be one of the cool ones, but still good to pick it up. I've never collected in this county before, and I think in general, North Florida is pretty under collected. So I'll have to check a lot of these once they're all dry and labeled up and everything. But I would have no doubts that some of this stuff is like new county records. Iridescent machine is neat. Yeah. So these two, which I think are going to be the last two that we do, because I'm getting kind of hungry here. These are tiger beetles. And so these variously bounce around between, yes, these are ground beetles, and no, they are not ground beetles. Currently they're not. So currently they are not ground beetles, but they are a very close relative nonetheless. I think they're kind of neat anyway. These ones are relatively they're okay. These are okay tiger beetles. Um but a lot of people really like tiger beetles, partially because they're a challenge to catch. They're very very fast. But people like tiger beetles because get things like this. So that's a tiger beetle. That's a tiger beetle. That's a tiger beetle. That's a tiger beetle. This is a tiger beetle. This is a tiger beetle. So the ones that we're looking at, maybe not the flashiest. There are certainly others that are much prettier in general, and so that's why a lot of people like them. Is that they're very pretty. They're a challenge to catch, so it's like an actual like it's a fun thing to go after. These two, this is Cicindolita punctillata. They're different species, Moonbeam. So all those ones that I had back there were different species. These two, however, this is Cicindolidia punctillata, which is known as the sidewalk tiger beetle. This is probably the most common and one of the most widespread species in the US. Um, they're pretty easy to identify. They have these incomplete crescents on the edge of the wing, like at the tip. You can see that little white sort of thing that comes around on the bottom. And they also have this distinct row of metallic punctures going down the back. So, like here, you can see this row coming down this. Um, and yeah, these are all over the place. The ones that are out west, there's a Chihuahuan subspecies that's in the Chihuahuan Desert. Um, that one's a little bit more green. And another thing that tiger beetle people really like is they love a subspecies. I do not love a subspecies. if a if your shit's that different, just make it a species. Um, So what ends up happening is that people will like uh I like to call it stamp collecting. They will go for like every single tiny little color variation, um and like call it and label it something different. Uh that's not for me. That is not my bag at all. I would rather appreciate like generic diversity and catching a bunch of other stuff than go through all of these. However, I do admit they're pretty cool. Tiger beetles are great. It's just not my preferred thing to work on. Um, are there colorful ground beetles? Yes. Yes, not. Um, one of those don't have. This is gonna be embarrassing. Yeah, we got some good stuff. Spinda's got like a billion combinations. Spinda hunters are next level and out of their mind. Um, this is a tray of beetles from French Guiana. So these are South American ground beetles. Not ones that we'll get here in the US, but got that guy. Got that guy. This guy. Get some like metallic going on. This one. Get some kind of neat like mottled patterns like this guy. So yeah, there are a couple. Um I in that talk that I was giving at the conference this past week, I start off saying like, "Oh yeah, ground beetles, carabids, blah blah blah." Um and for those of you that know the group are probably imagining something like these. And I put up 3 of like the most plain boring ground beetles that you might look at. And I say something like, this is what you're maybe picturing conserved morphology, so nothing crazy going on, relatively dull in color most of the time. And some people, not me, but some people might even say boring. And that always gets a laugh. That one always gets a laugh because that is sort of the reputation that ground beetles have is that there's, oh yeah, it's just a boring bug. Um, but then my next slide, I have some of the really cool, like big shiny things, weird morphology, so like weird body shapes and things like that. Uh, and I'm like, and there's like 40,000 species of these motherfuckers. Some of them are cool. You guys are like underappreciating them, and so I want to tell you about some really cool ones that we have here in Florida to specifically like, you know, hype people up about the ones that we have here. Um, yeah, Linden, you're not wrong. Calisoma Screwtator is like the poster child. If there's ever ground beetle merch where there isn't, nobody ever fucking has ground beetle merch. But if they do, it's always this guy, which is like real. I don't know why I shared that. I can just show you guys my other screen. It's always this guy, which is fine because it's like, yeah, that it's pretty. It's really pretty. Um, but it is the classic, but it does feel overused sometimes. Um, here I have. Give me give me give me 1 second. I will be right back. So you see the calcoma here. You got that. Well, again, the only merch, the only merch you can get always has this motherfucker. Keep showing up. So it's a great hat. I love my beetle hat. It's fantastic. But uh it do be the same beetle all the time. But yeah, it's always this guy, and inarguably, it is a very pretty beetle. It is a very cool, very nice iridescent ground beetle. But it does you see a calcium screwtator, you're seeing a bunch of calcium screwtator, you know what I'm saying? Who would I like to see on merch? Roxers, my favorite genus is Omifron. At least I would say US genera. Um, these guys. These are the round sand beetles. And this genus will always kind of be a little special to me. This was like the first group. There's only 11 species in the US, so it's not huge, but they're very distinct for ground beetles. This is like not a normal ground beetle shape. Um but this was the first genus that I felt like I was actually really confident in identifying. The key is really great for them. A lot of collections will have them, so every one of the like 35 insect collections that I've been to at this point, every single Omifron that they have has been identified. I do Omifron. It's like the first thing that I go to in any new collection, because they're fun. It's such a neat shape. The patterns are distinct enough that oftentimes I'm just looking at this green and tan pattern and like getting to a species group based off of that. Um yeah, these are some of my favorites, and uh when eventually I get back to Arizona um to walk for graduation, I'm going to get like I have my clown beetle here. I want to get Omifron on this side. So this piece right here is being saved for my ground beetle tattoo. But yeah, Omifron's my homie. That's definitely the one I like the most. Um, my office mate who also did the emotes, or not the emotes, the sub badges. She has she made me last year a sign for my birthday for at work. To like let people know when I was out of my office and things like that. She put my two favorite groups on there: the Omifron, and the little earwig there drinking a margarita. So this is great. This hangs outside my door now, and I'll write like, oh, at lunch or in the auditorium or in the warehouse or whatever. So super nice. It's great. I love this. I love the sign a lot. But yeah, she was like sneakily asking like, oh, what's your favorite ground beetle? um, and so it's hard, right? It's hard for me to pick a favorite. It's like picking your favorite child sort of thing. So my default answer is Omifron, but if I'm learning and like focusing on a particular group, it could be my favorite for a week or so. I don't know, but I always come back to Omifron. I've just always really really liked them. All right, let's look at this tiger beetle a little bit more, and then I'm going to wrap up here before too long. So one of the big things about tiger beetles, and one of the things that people are like going back and forth about where they belong based on this, is uh where these antennae are placed. So right now we're looking face on at the tiger beetle, and you can see that the antennae are basically here between the eyes. They're very much put on like the front of the face. Whereas this other ground beetle, or this like actual ground beetle, for instance, um, has the antenna in line with the eye and the base of the mandible. So there's other stuff, larval morphologies, like what the larvae look like and stuff are different. But exteriorly, this antennal placement is like one of the easiest things to separate what would be a quote unquote normal ground beetle from what would be a tiger beetle. He does have a mustache. This is not the most extreme of mustaches. There is a species called Cicindela hirtilabris. Uh, hirtilabris means hairy lip. So, rather than just having like what this guy does, where it's um, where it's just these like six hairs coming out of the labrum there, the entire thing is like coated with like thick white hairs. Um, I don't think I've collected hirtilabris, so I don't think I can't show you. But thank God for the Google and bug guy. Um, yeah, that's good enough. Show that to you. So this is hirtilabris, so you can see that there's a lot more seedy, a lot more hairs sort of on the front of the head. But then this is the same area that we were just looking at on the other one. You can see like how densely coated with white hairs. Is it always six? I believe so, Snitzer. Also, hello. Welcome in. Thanks for being here. Um, that trait does vary, but it's usually pretty consistent within a species. So if that individual had six, I would imagine that that is consistent, but I know that there are other tiger beetles that will only have two, and there are other tiger beetles that will have eight. So that's one of those things where it maybe doesn't tell us anything evolutionarily, but it is still something that we can use to help identify like what some of these things are. Oh, you're still. But yeah, so six I think is probably pretty standard for this. And then this median tooth here. So this little pokey guy, that also is something that we use. Sam, hello. That's also something that we use for identification within this group, whether or not this structure is single toothed, like we're looking at here, or if it's bidentate, meaning it has two, or if there's three or multiple spikes across the thing. So all of these little, seemingly little characters, uh, can help us with like figuring out what we're looking. Maybe next time we can run through the key a little bit and show you like what all goes into identifying the things. So like going through and looking, seeing how many different structures you have to look at to basically get a whole beetle ID. It's way more than you think it is. Way more. Does the fairy collect bug teeth and give them money? Probably not, because they don't lose teeth in the same way that we do. Their mandibles are all just kind of there. But there is something really cool in weevils called the deciduous process. Um, and it's only in these broad nose weevils where they have these big, seemingly like extra mandibles on their mandibles that will then break off eventually. So on the right here, this is without the process. On the left, this is still with the process on. They have these because as larvae, they're feeding in plant roots, and they will use these extra mandibles to be able to chew out of the plant root, sort of like an egg tooth on a bird that will also fall off. But it's called a deciduous process, uh, because it falls off. Like deciduous leaves are ones that fall off at the end of the year. The deciduous process here will oftentimes break or fall off of these weevils just going like day to day. If you get lucky, you can find them with them still attached like this. Uh, when I first not even moved, when I visited Arizona, like before I decided to start my program there, we went out in the desert and we were collecting in sand dunes where a lot of these weevils that have the deciduous process are. And I had never collected one with it before. And I remember getting home and looking and being like, this weevil's got fangs. Like, what are what are we doing? What are we doing here? Um, so it's a neat thing to see, and you don't actually see it like on the specimen very often. But something that you use to identify these guys, like to identify broad nosed weevils, is the shape of the scar left behind when this process falls off. So sometimes the scar is very square, sometimes it's more triangular, sometimes it's rounded. So you're looking for where this broke off on the mandible when you're trying to identify this group instead. Tiger beetles don't have that sort of process. All that you're seeing here is pure mandible. So these are just singular solid pieces that they use to chomp and munch and crunch up their food. But they don't ideally they don't break off or fall off for them because they simply will not grow back. Um so in general, no, probably no bug tooth fairy, but maybe specifically in broad nose weevil culture there is a tooth fairy of sorts. Um I don't know. You have to ask a broad nose weevil. All right, y'all. I gotta go eat dinner. Figure out what I want. Thanks for hanging out, y'all. Bug soup, I think, is always a fun stream, but also it does always take longer than I think it does because we go off down so many routes that are not just mounting bugs. Um, but that's fine. I think this is a fun way to do it, especially because we're answering like what you're curious about and not just the stuff that I always want to do. But yeah, thanks for all you new folks that showed up and hung out. Good seeing you. Nice meeting everybody. Um, we do for those of you that maybe are not aware, I also do insect education online for Alveus Sanctuary. So that's every Wednesday night. We do that there. No me on screen, but my omnipresent voice talking about the bugs that we find on screen at the sanctuary. So we are going to head on home, which means I'm gonna raid us into Alveus for the night. Um, but thanks again, y'all, for hanging out. It is fun as always. We will be back hopefully next Monday, probably next Monday at the very least. Maybe this weekend. I don't know. We'll see, but I will see y'all around at some point. Bye, everybody. Have a nice night.